Here I'm going to discuss the different requirements for paraprofessionals. As you can see in parentheses, I put that these may differ by district. And to clear up what that means, for instance, in Peoria Public Schools District 150, it is an absolute requirement that you have 60 college credit hours to be hireable as a paraprofessional in Peoria Public Schools. So as you can see under the second bullet point, paraprofessional license through ISBE, ISB, Illinois State Board of Education, however you prefer to refer to it, one of the requirements is to show proof of one of the following requirements: an associate's degree or higher, or 60 semester hours of coursework. So basically what this means in my school district is if you want to pursue a paraprofessional position in District 150 in Peoria and you have 60 college credit hours, you simply show proof of those hours and you apply for the paraprofessional license through ISB, and you have now met all the requirements that District 150 has in place for their paraprofessionals. So I want to start by talking about some issues I have seen within my district with the college credit hours requirements. A lot of people do not have 60 college credit hours and then they want to pursue a full-time position as a teacher's aide. In talking to different paraprofessionals within my district, I have found that a lot of them were pursuing other career paths and they did not go past their associate's degree or the equivalent of 60 college credit hours due to personal issues, family issues, things like that. So basically, they were in college for something completely different than education, and life happened and they had to stop their college journey. So here they are with 60 college credit hours and no real career path to continue to follow. As you know, there are some associate's degree programs out there that will lead directly to being able to obtain a job in their chosen career field. Sometimes people will go and get an associate's degree in something like social work or psychology, something along those lines, and being educators, we work with social workers and psychologists, and they require a higher level of education to really be marketable in those career fields. So going back to the college credit hours issue, in District 150, personally, I have found that there are some people that have 45 college credit hours, or there's some people that have 30, or there's some people that have none, but may prove to be very successful at being a paraprofessional. So a big issue within my district is trying to get that requirement changed to have a bigger pool of candidates that can be paraprofessionals within District 150. So if you drop down to the last two bullet points under the paraprofessional license through ISB, you will see that there are alternative ways to obtain the paraprofessional license. You have to have a high school diploma, and then you can either get a score of 460 or higher on the ETS Parapro test. That test basically measures your capabilities in mathematics, reading, and writing. It does not focus on educational questions, methodology, pedagogy, classroom management, interventions, nothing like that. It does not really deal with education per se. Or you can meet required scores on the ACT Work Keys test, and you can see that those deal with the same things basically the Parapro test does: mathematics, reading for information, and then writing. So I have talked to a lot of colleagues and peers in other districts, and their teachers' aides or teachers' assistants are only required to have the paraprofessional license. This makes their candidate pool for paraprofessionals much larger than District 150's does, for instance. Let's drop down to the issue. So, no required college classes in education. So, you can essentially be a paraprofessional within the state of Illinois with college credit hours or with no college credit hours. Going further, there is no requirement that says you have to have at least 3 classes that deal with education to be a paraprofessional. Think back to your Intro to Education class, your Education 110 class, one of the first EDU classes or SED classes or SPED classes or something along those lines that you took in undergrad, probably your sophomore year, maybe even your junior year if you were a transfer student. I can remember in my EDU 110 Intro to Education class learning a mass amount of knowledge that is just the basis of education. We learned about ethics, morals, we learned about FERPA, we learned about basic ways to respect the students, we learned about professionalism, we learned about all these things that we still use today. And for us, we may think that a lot of those issues that I just mentioned are common sense. Unfortunately, that is not always the case. There has been issues of paraprofessionals not grasping concepts such as you cannot go home and talk to, your friends about what little Johnny did in class today, and he has this in his behavior intervention plan, and, Sally's getting all F's, things like that. And by really no fault of the paraprofessional, if they've never been educated on something such as FERPA, how are we supposed to expect them to know things like that? Some other issues within paraprofessionals not having any required college coursework in the field of education would be, they're not teachers, I know this, but a lot of paraprofessionals will simply just feed kids answers. And obviously, as teachers, we know that that is not the point of education. So on the next slide, I am going to ask you to list and briefly discuss 3 negative effects you may have experienced or you would think could happen from paraprofessionals not having any required college classes in the field of education. This can be a negative effect on the students. It can be a negative effect on the teachers. It can be a negative effect on professionalism, really anything. So if you want to just take a minute and think about that, and you will see that question on the next slide. Here I'm going to discuss the different requirements for paraprofessionals